Welcome into the fastest 2 hours in hockey. It's the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Daniele Franceschi, Derek Brandeo, Jen Rolnick. In for those fast 2 hours.
Yeah.
We are live on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus. You can also download us anywhere you get your pod. You can always text us. Your name. What else, Daniele?
Location, please.
Location and standard message and data rates apply. This is why Disco Dan is the best.
Yeah.
Because he cares. He cares, and he's warning people that Rogers may charge you $20 to send us a message.
Well, or 20
Right?
cents anyway.
Whatever it is,
yeah.
the man cares.
Thank you.
Sammy doesn't.
No. And hey, does anyone still pay per text anymore? Is that
I don't
still even an
know.
option?
I have no idea.
Backing up over Sammy.
Is that Sammy after last night's game?
Ooh, could be. Is he dumping all over the Leafs? or what?
Or he's underneath it,
Yeah, could be.
but he cannot be feeling very well. This may be
He's
the
blissfully
best
unaware.
week ever to have Sammy as far away from the Toronto-Florida game as can be, as he's in Hawaii.
Yeah, he got to be here to watch the Leafs beat up on Florida in a game that wasn't all that close in the Leafs' favor. And then he got to leave to not see the opposite of that, which is what happened last night. Not to go ahead and give you my full take on the game, Kip, but that was
Well, listen,
not their best effort.
I lied. This is going to be a very slow hour of the
Painful
show because
slog.
if you don't have anything good to say, you're not supposed to say anything at all, is what my mom always told me. So I don't know where we go after a 3-1 loss, which could look really respectable on a summary sheet
Sure.
on your computer or on a newspaper.
Doing with an empty netter, really
Right.
a 2-1 game. What's the big deal?
And yes, the Leafs had a chance to tie the game up with 5 minutes to go and steal a point or two.
Mhm.
And that's where the glass ends on being half full.
Yeah, anything.
And like I said, it's a slow hour because I don't know where we go from here in terms of where do you even start on a game that, like, it's an understatement to say it's the most disappointing loss of the season, isn't it?
No, well said. I think, what's your worst fears? If you're a Leafs fan, if you're the management of the Leafs, your worst fears are that when the going gets tough and you're playing a good team that's playing a tight playoff checking game, that they're not going to be able to break through again, that they're going to be quiet, that they're just going to kind of go down with a whimper. And last night was that. They get outshot. Pick a metric from last night. Pick a metric. The biggest one to me is they lost the puck battle percentage, according to Sportlogic, 70-30. 70% to 30%. They lost puck battles. That's a big part of it. They couldn't get, shots, expected goals, whatever you want. Florida carried the play last night, and Matthews, Marner, and Nylander combined for one shot, which kind of came late in the game.
In about 30 minutes, we'll welcome in Craig Simpson. He called the game last night. Always has an ability to ground us a little bit here. So I am so looking forward to Craig Simpson's thoughts. At the top of the hour, Hall of Famer Chris Pronger will join us. And somewhere in the building is Mr. Glenn Healy.
Is that right?
Who is the current executive director of the NHL alumni. And I told him if he doesn't come in and see us, it's somewhere in a window between now and 6 p.m. I'll never speak to him again. And I think he left.
I joked with Borny. He said, "Come hunt me down." I said, "Okay,
all right."
He's somewhere at the
Challenge
mothership,
accepted.
which is like a campus here. So good luck.
So plenty of positivity coming our show.
No, you said plenty of good guests. We didn't say plenty of positivity.
Okay, so I'm lost in terms of where you want to start.
Oh, do you want to?
So
extrapolate last night to something greater? Was it just a one-off where they played bad, or did you see something that you think that's going to be a real problem?
I've watched, and I came off my vacation, but I certainly watched enough of Columbus last week, and I came back, and you told me that you thought they played really well. I mentioned that there's still parts of the game that I don't really like. What I didn't like the most was averaging 7 shots a period, in the first 40 minutes. And I get that sometimes shots on goal can be misleading, but the one thing that I like when you have about 30 or 40 shots is you're guaranteed that the puck's not in your own zone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. They could not get past Florida's forecheck. You mentioned 7 shots a period. They only got 4 in the third, right? When they were down a goal chasing. So that Florida forecheck is hard. We know it's a major strength of their team. And, right now, the thing that the Leafs want to do is they want to try to out Florida. They want to flip it out, and they want to chase, and they want to check. They can't do it as well as Florida.
I've been consistent on this for, I think, the whole season. I do not like stretch passing. I do not like Willie Nylander blowing the zone. And yeah, on occasion it can work. I get that. But when things really tighten up against a good team like Florida, the flip pass is all you have. There are no lanes for a 30-40 pass.
No.
And you've got to come out together. You watch Florida, any type of heat that the Leafs gave them in the second period, it was pass, out. Right?
And little ones. Supportive ones.
Yeah. Leafs do not do that.
No. I compare that to, and I don't know if you've ever played, but Ultimate Frisbee, you have to throw it. When you catch it, you can only run 2 or 3 steps before you have to throw it again.
Yes.
So sometimes people have these little, to you, to me, to you, to me. And you just kind of Ultimate Frisbee your way up the field. That, to me, is how you break out against a heavy forecheck. The center's got to come all the way low, so they're playing 200 feet. They got to be this far away from their D. Little slip.
That hasn't been Berube's message to them, or it is, and they're not listening. But they do not do that.
They don't want to do that. That's not Berube's.
The question I have here is, what's so different about Florida compared to anybody else that they play? Because we have this traditional trope of, when you get to the playoffs, it's different. And that's been the whole message throughout the season. It's been consistent. Hey, you got to play this way because when it counts, even last night after the game, all these guys, especially Matthew Nyes, reiterating that to a T. This is how you play come playoff time. So if that's how you have to play, then what makes Florida so different than when it's been Tampa or Boston or, really, those are the only 2 teams they've seen in the postseason, really. But why? Why is it that then, for whatever reason, Florida is the kryptonite that when they see them, they don't know how to adapt to what they're seeing?
For me, it's an authenticity that, this is how their forwards like to play. This is their preferred game. They like to be over top of guys. Barkov is always tight. I know Bennett didn't play last night, but the forecheck is, the Leafs are asking guys to do something they don't really want to do. It's not their preference stylistically to flip the puck out, to chase it, to be tight in the neutral zone. So to me, it's just, this is really who their players are, and the system fits the talent really well. It's a tough matchup.
It is a tough matchup.
I wasn't thrilled with Matthew Nyes' game, but I loved him post comments.
We have 4 Matthew Nyes
yes.
clips.
Oh, we should.
That's why.
Yeah,
that's why Disco has 4.
Yeah,
because he was fantastic in assessing what he really saw. I saw comments out of Tavares and Riley where I'm like, did you play the same game that I just watched?
I had someone write me about Riley's comments, and I didn't hear them, but he said something to the effect of
it was a close game. It was a close game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Morgan,
close
please,
all around,
please tell me you've been in the league long enough where you just got your ass fed to you. Please. You cannot go on air and tell me that was a close game with a little attention to details. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But be more honest with the people that watch you and support you.
The Florida Panthers almost had as many high danger chances as the Leafs had total shots.
That's nuts. Because they had 12 high danger chances, and Toronto only 4 in the game.
Okay, let's go to our first Kippers Clipper, and it's led by Matthew Nyes. Clip 1.
Yeah, I think, our forecheck wasn't really good enough. I think we were a little sloppy in that sense and just let them break out a little bit too easy. I think we didn't get enough shots on net. Didn't make it difficult in front of their net. So I think that was the difference.
Boy, sounds like a coach.
Too easy. Too easy. Good. Yes. 100%. We saw all that. Totally on the same page.
Oh, absolutely. Let's keep
Want to play the one?
through.
You want to play the one where he calls him soft?
Yes.
Clip
that's,
3.
That's the money one.
I mean, it's always physical. We expect it when we come in here that it's going to be, hard battle. And, so we knew it was going to be like this. And, we tried to push back, but I think we didn't do a good enough job. I think our physicality, I think we were a little bit soft in some areas and, not through the full 60. So, we're going to have to learn to do that when it comes to playoff times.
Just, you had me at soft.
I was bothered only once by the softness, really. And it's when there was a shoving match with Bobby McMahon and someone else in the third period. And you're going to see this team in playoffs. If you want to win the Stanley Cup, you're going to have to go through Florida, you assume. Some sort of stand up to them. You won't be pushed around and just no engagement in a certain scrum. I was like, God, just want these guys to be aware that this is an opponent you're trying to send a message to.
Totally with you on all accounts. And, we praised the guys, including, Lawrence Saturday night on his fight. And Benoit taking on the toughest guy in Columbus, and Olivier.
Maybe the toughest guy in the league.
Yes.
Up there.
And it's like, okay, you did it, but you can't just randomly pick your spots. You have to be able to bring that to the equation when it's called for in the games that you need most. And nothing, zero out of all their role players. They needed somebody to stand up and go, I've just seen about enough. Like they're having their way with us completely in all facets. Do something to slow them down. Do something to throw them off their rhythm. I don't care what it is, but you can't just sit there and take uppercuts for 60 minutes.
It's like when you're playing 21 against someone and they're on the free throw line just draining buckets. You got to throw it off the line sometimes.
But they wouldn't. They did nothing to throw off or change the rhythm of this constant push.
Well, that's
by Florida.
Craig, was it Berube who used the term three-quarter iced? Three-quarter iced us. This is a couple weeks ago. That to me is last night where you flip it out in the neutral zone, they get it in the three-quarter ice, and they come back down your throat. You flip it out, and they come back down, and it's just like this sort of repeated cycle that Kip's alluding here to, and couldn't find a way out of that.
All right, let's go to Craig Berube on his thoughts, and they're not good ones when you mention that one team wants something more than the other.
Clip 1, Berube.
They wanted it more than us. It starts in the face-off circle. They're 70% tonight. To me, it just comes down to competitiveness and digging in more. They seemed like a more desperate team than us.
On a game with the division on the line.
I do think that game, this is not going to go over well, meant more to Florida than Toronto. Standings-wise. And Florida had just lost 5 in a row and needed to find themselves and got some play. I think Florida had all the right factors to bring their best hockey game to last night. That's not to say the Leafs shouldn't be ready for that, but I do think everything pointed towards you were going to get a Florida effort in that game.
This is a team that just won the Stanley Cup, went to the finals the year before.
Yeah.
Like no other team has more reason just to
say we'll figure it out later.
No, we'll just rest on our laurels, right?
Yeah.
And like the Leafs acted like that. The Leafs acted like
We're the division leader. We're just gonna
Ugh.
maybe we'll get it here tonight.
But guys, this is not new.
No,
It's not new.
No,
That's the thing that's always frustrating. They give you these. Every team isn't. Don't get me wrong. Every team's entitled to the odd goose egg here and there, right? The flat performance or a flat period. I get
happens.
it. It happens. 82 of them for a reason, right? Baseball, $1.62, and you can quibble all you want when the manager says we got to tip our cap. But sometimes I get it. I understand it. I can accept it. The problem with this team is it's 9 years of this behavior that has become habitual. Time and again, you're seeing the same things. And it's generally against the same quality of teams in most instances. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if tonight they go out and they play great. I would not be stunned whatsoever.
They've done that before, too.
Yes, but
They're
it doesn't
actually-
erase what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It doesn't erase it.
Yeah.
Because come the playoffs, every game is going to be even more magnified. We know this, and they should know this too.
They also know tonight if they lose, they will play Florida in the first round.
Yeah, that's incentive.
Okay.
Maybe.
I mean,
Definitely.
the team that just.
Did you happen to see my article today? No offense if not.
No, I did not.
Well, I wrote about that.
It's a good read, Bourne.
Thank
I did. I read it.
Yeah.
The idea being
See, we think of the like.
that tonight you can make the case that tonight is the most important game in this core's history based on what's at stake. If you lose tonight, Tampa passes you for first. You're tied in points, but Tampa has the
Yeah.
tiebreaker for first. Tampa has a softer schedule, more home games, more non-playoff opponents. You're probably finishing second and playing Florida. In that case, you're probably losing in the first round. And at that point, you're probably losing Mitch Marner. You might be losing John Tavares. Whatever. You beat Tampa tonight, you almost lock up the division for sure. You're 4 points up with a few games left. At that point, you're getting Ottawa. At that point, Florida and Tampa Bay play each other in the first round. If you were to beat Ottawa, you get a soft. There's this path where good vibes. Maybe you're in a conference final. You can extend Marner. You believe in the core now. Tonight could have huge butterfly effect on the season.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that's the
high
first thing I
stakes.
thought.
Hey, sliding doors moment.
Absolutely.
Right? In a
it
month
is.
from now,
Yeah.
you look back, you say, boy, that game with 4 games left,
Yeah.
5, whatever it is, against Tampa. That
Changed
was the sliding door moment where it changed it because you didn't get the draw you wanted, and now look where you are. You're maybe already teeing it up. not to be negative.
That was just so dramatic. Hey, win tonight and you're fine. Lose and Marner plays for the Hurricanes. It's fine.
Even if they find a way to win tonight,
Yeah.
last night leaves a mark.
For who? For you? For your belief?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, yeah.
It leaves a
But
mark.
what does that mean? Like,
It means
I
that
don't think it changes anything.
it means that I just have a little less faith in what we've experienced. I think for 75 games.
Yeah. And also,
That's all.
Mhm.
I still cannot. I can't come around to a team that didn't show better when they needed to against the team that embarrassed them in the second round last year. It's like, why? Like at the end of the day, how do you answer why?
Habits take time to break.
do you really miss Jake McCabe and David Camp? I don't know. Is that a contributing factor?
They're all.
Uh,
we said they're missing
Hey,
their guys.
Bennett,
Yeah.
Bennett, Ekblad.
The biggest, there is part of me, when I'm trying to be like, all right, Florida brings the best game. They don't play very well. It looks really bad last night. But anyway you cut it, the matchup sucks for the Leafs against Florida. Like just the way that lineup goes head to head with the Leafs lineup. If you go through the Atlantic Division, there's some weird outliers. Montreal's 4-0-0 against Florida this year. They absolutely have their number. Ottawa is it 3 or 4-0-0 against Toronto?
Yeah, 3-0-0.
Toronto
Yep.
is 3-0-0 against Tampa
So-
Bay. Like
So
there's just some
is
matchups.
it
for
less?
teams.
Is it less about the personnel and then how Montreal plays them compare how the Leafs play them, and maybe they're a lot more structured when they come out of their own zone. Maybe they're not cheating and stretching out passes.
Well-
Is this a coaching issue?
It could be, but it could also be personnel in that Lane Hudson can make people miss on the breakout and make little passes. Mike Matheson is a great skater and can make little passes on the breakout. Like maybe it's that their D are doing a better job going back on pucks and breaking
Wow.
it out. And McCabe does it well. They miss him a bit, but that's not everything.
They do appear slower against a lot of teams,
Mhm.
or they're moving the puck slower, or they're thinking slower. They're not processing fast enough.
I just think they have a lot of D whose job it is to not make the big mistake. So they're saying, Benoit, when you go back, bang it off the glass. Myers, when you go back, bang it off the glass. Tanev, we're fine with chipping off the glass. Carlo, you're okay to chip it off the glass. You go through it, and it's like, okay, Riley and Ekman-Larsson are allowed to make a play.
There was that one shift by Benoit.
And Riley passed it to them.
There was the one shift by Benoit who thought he was playing center, I think.
Is he so far up the rink?
Oh, my God.
I know. Actually, Simmer, we'll talk to him after this. He was like, okay, it's Benoit's up the ice again. See if he comes back to the D zone. Yeah. So they don't have a lot of D that are meant to make cute little plays. So it could be personnel. It could be the way they're being told to play.
And the emphasis has always been like, don't give up the middle of the ice, block shots, right? It's defense mode.
They're going to park the bus, baby.
Park the bus.
Just get hit by shots.
I think also
Hope
there's
Matthews and Marner go score.
honestly, I think there's also just an element of certain teams will be more comfortable facing a certain type of personnel. For whatever reason, when Florida goes and they're on the whiteboard, Paul Maurice for the game, his staff, they're just looking at it, matchups, they feel really good. They like it. They're not afraid of 16, 34, 88 as much as maybe when Ottawa sits there, even Tampa. Oh boy, line matching. How do we figure this out? How do we navigate? Oh, in this situation, let's do this. Just inherently, if it seems like when you listen to them talk, especially, they're very calm and at peace when they have to play those guys.
That's a confidence to
Right?
it, isn't
It's
it?
just a confidence thing, 100%.
For sure.
All right, let's find a positive
Okay.
outside of a first goal by Forsling.
Mhm.
Joseph Woll.
Now, do you get to do that?
I don't know. I'm going to try. I'm going to try.
Outside
You
of
know
that
what?
one that really crippled them.
If Sammy was here, I'd give him a what do you think the score would have been if you would have had Alif Samsonov in that last night?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a tough
Yeah.
look. I mean, probably 5-1, something like
But
that. Yeah.
He was
He locked it down.
really, really good. At least the goaltending is still there to keep you in games, keep you engaged.
He should feel good about himself. You know, he's played that Florida team very well many times. I like the idea that he's going to enter playoffs without the pressure. The team is saying Stolarz is the guy. We've seen Woll come in a backup capacity and excel. So glad that he looked like he did last night, even if he didn't like the one. We do have Morgan Riley for a quick one.
All
on
right, let's
Joseph
give
Woll.
Morgan a comment here.
Riley, clip one, please.
I thought Joe was great. I mean, we want to help him out as much as we can by blocking shots and talking to him when he's out playing the puck. But both our goalies have been outstanding for us all year, and I thought Joe was good tonight.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Did the job.
Like, how about the puck that exploded off of Morgan's stick? Like, I get it. Eventually, something bad's going to happen. When you're eating glass all night,
Totally.
something's bad's going to happen.
Yeah. Like, initial reaction, you watch that and go, I mean, that's the worst possible luck you could have on a fumbled sort of puck handle. And then you go, if you play the whole game in that part of the rink, it's going to happen.
Sure.
You know, so as much as it's like, I'm not that upset about the one physical mistake, I'm upset that you're in your D zone for the 94th, consecutive shift. And that sort of thing is going to happen. So
You guys mentioned the Forsling goal, right? It was funny as watching it. I even chuckled in the moment because I thought about what Valley said yesterday in regards to the shoulder movement. And you look at how Woll played it. It's
He was
interesting.
caught.
Yeah,
He was caught
So-
between glove and shoulder.
right. And then you're thinking, I'm like, boy, good stuff, Valley. Like you just hit the nail on the head. You talked about that,
he nails it
and
every
you
time.
literally see it happen right there in the moment. And then what is it? It's a 1-goal hockey game in the end.
Yeah.
That goes effectively because 3-1 empty net. Effectively a 1-goal game. That is the outcome. And you start on the back foot with a play like that you're thinking, maybe you get that save. It's a little bit of a different ball. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Certainly could have changed things. So then after that game, you go into your room. We do have a clip from Berube on message after last
Okay, let me
night's
just
loss. Yeah.
follow it up because I just want to say off that goal, something that we've never seen is like a not ready John Tavares on a faceoff, which was really, really almost freakish.
He's
that
I
he
think,
got caught.
7th in the league in faceoff.
That he got
percentage.
caught like relaxing or feeling like he just didn't pick up
They didn't like that draw, though.
the
They thought
rhythm-
the linesmen weren't fair.
the rhythm of the official's hand bringing the puck down, and to John's credit, after he owned it. So let's go to John Tavares' clip 2 on the faceoff.
That one's on me. I think, you understand tendencies of guys you go against and what they do. And I was anticipating something on his end, and I just completely mistimed it and misread it. And it's on me. Obviously, you can't lose them clean like that and give an opportunity in the middle of the ice.
Yeah, and that is good. That's the right way to handle that sort of thing. Yeah, if you're good to turn the page to Tampa Bay, we got some clips from today aiming, looking forward. Craig Berube, clip 3. We'll get his message to the team after last night's loss.
Yeah, a lot of what we talked about last night, and I talked to you guys about, and move on. And it's a big game tonight, obviously. First place, very good team, Tampa. We know what they're all about. And we got to be a lot more competitive, and we got to win more puck battles than we did last night, and more urgency in our game than we had last night. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
I just thought he would be more higher strung than he is. He is like a dose of ketamine, man. This guy's like, whatever. Pretty chill,
He's
right?
not fooling us, is he?
No, because I know
In
he is
coming-
passionate and cares.
I know,
and-
but when I say he's not fooling us, he's not playing that and then going in there and
ripping posters off the wall.
ripping posters off the wall. Like, I'm asking you, is he?
I think that during games, he's probably a lot more animated than we know. But, boy, he's
not. Whatever's going on behind the scenes, he is not tipping his hand.
No. And I bet they love that.
You guys see the clip of him?
But they're not acting like they care enough about it.
You see the clip of him from the LA game in the intermission? He goes in. Must have been from one of the Leafs, the little behind the scenes blueprint, I think it's called. And he's just dropping bombs,
Yeah.
like going at him. And I'm thinking, yeah. So that's still there, right?
Mhm.
That version of him is still there. I bet you it's just maybe also to some extent playing the media game, understanding what market you're in
Yeah.
and all of that, because you don't want to be too revealing. You don't want to tip your hand. You want to kind of stay even keel as best you can. Now, would it be nice occasionally, a little bit more fire and a little bit more pointed criticism at times? Probably, but I think he's just trying to really play it, and then behind closed doors, you're getting a different feel.
Yeah. I mean, I have to believe that's the case.
Yeah.
All right. I know you mentioned briefly Matthews, Marner, and Nylander with the 1 or 2 shots on goal.
Yeah, one combined. I wonder if that's ever happened before.
I think they were credited 1 each, Matthews and Marner.
Collectively, just one.
Just collectively 1.
Just one collectively.
Okay.
They didn't even have Nylander,
Not even an
Matthews
attempt.
didn't even have an attempt through 2 periods.
Yeah.
So how much pressure on them now to come back and show well in Tampa tonight? Because it's not like we spent the last 28 minutes like ripping on them. We just mentioned a stat,
Yeah.
which is kind of rare.
You're the best offensive players. They always get opportunities. I mean, that includes power play, right? So there's certainly some pressure, but I do wonder. So I've told you how I feel about the stakes with tonight. Do you think that they think it's that big a deal?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I how can you not? You've been in the league almost 10 years
They
or 10
haven't
years.
won the division yet
Right?
as a core. They
It's
they won the
there.
North Division.
It's
they haven't won the
there.
Atlantic.
Yeah, it's in your hands. I don't
At
understand.
this point, we will say they blew it. They had the lead, multiple 4 points with 2 weeks to go.
Mhm.
Do you
Went
think?
into Florida
Do you think a
and-
big portion of the matchup and why they don't fare well is because like Barkov and Lindell are so friggin' big and strong and so positional, and do they catch a break? And I'm not suggesting that Point and Cirelli and now Yanni Gord are inferior to
Yeah.
Florida, but does the matchup feel better for Tavares tonight and Matthews, who lead the first 2 lines?
I just can't see how it could feel better. Point and Cirelli. I don't know if there's 2 better centers in the league, like back to back on one team. Like
I
don't-
don't know what it is. I don't know how how Matthews and Tavares, and Tavares made a great shot, but it was off a giveaway too, and it's not like, okay, he scored. I get it, but outside of that, he and Matthews just could not control any part of the ice at any point in the game.
Yeah, and I do put it on them, of course. They're a part of it too, but collectively they spent so much time playing defense. It's, like an NFL team that can't get their offense on the field. It's like you just had your defense out for the whole game, and they're exhausted and they're pinned.
Gensel, Point, and Kucherov.
I know.
Kucherov is like fuego right now. He is an inferno. He's on fire.
The trios with the most goals in the NHL. Third is McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. Then it's Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander. And then number one is the guys you just mentioned.
Hey, positive. Leafs have been very good against the Lightning. They like playing against Vasilevsky, it seems.
No one has scored on him more than Austin Matthews.
There you go. So if we're looking for positives, think about that.
Thank you.
Maybe that's evidence of why, for whatever reason, he likes playing against Point as opposed to playing against Barkov.
Fair enough. All right, we got to get to simmer.
What you're saying is there's a chance.
There's always a chance.
All right. Maybe we'll get one from Craig Simpson, too, when he comes on next when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Disco Dan, in for Sammy McKee, who's recovering off the 3-1 loss to the Florida Panthers last night.
Covering off Mai Tais and pina coladas, pal. That's all he's doing.
In a few minutes, we'll welcome in Craig Simpson, who will be calling the game tonight with our very own CC.
Phew.
Kind of screwed up. I mentioned that Craig worked the game last night. He didn't.
You should never admit you made a mistake. Someone told me that once.
But I can fill 2 hours with mistakes that I've made.
I'm with you, buddy.
But that pretty much sums up why the Leafs lost, because it was on TSN.
Oh, is
right?
that what
Yes,
happened?
we blame TSN, and Simmer didn't work the game. He's going to work the game tonight.
So they'll be fine.
And the Leafs will be fine.
Whew.
Is that the way it's going to work out there, Craig?
Well, I was wondering. I was worried that you thought I was calling a game that I wasn't calling. So yeah. I guess I'm not that impactful either way, even to an old buddy. I think who knows what we're going to get tonight, but no question watching that one, I was echoing the sentiment that both you guys have been talking about for the first half hour.
So when you watch a performance like that, your first thoughts are, does it go to style of play, the system that they're using, or is it just stare in the mirror time?
Yeah, it's another sort of slap in the face as a team, because you know what's at stake. I don't think there is any question that, human nature, they may have been a little bit guilty of thinking about tonight's game a little bit, because at the time anyways, it seemed like, Florida's struggling. I saw their lineup the game before. You don't know what we're going to get. The chance to get Tampa is one. But once that game starts and you're in the thick of it, you go, man, this is the opportunity to give yourself more of a cushion tonight. So instead of that 4-point cushion, now this night means even more. So I think the disappointment has got to be there. I echo Berube's sentiment with just, you look at some nights you can say, okay, our team just didn't have it. The other team wanted it more. But you go into a back-to-back in Florida with so much, it's kind of inexcusable. That's one that it clearly rattled Craig a little bit, the way that his team played it. And it's one that now you hope that you can really influence your guys to come up with maybe your best effort. And I think it was Justin who was saying that is kind of their MO, isn't it? They can disappoint you one night and then, wow, they come back with a great, solid game. And I think that's why, if you've listened to Craig's comments, which are very measured, they don't have a lot of ups and downs. The consistent message, though, is to be a much more consistent team with every aspect of our game. And I think that's where he's just tried to continue to drive that point home. And I think that's why you saw the kind of talk that he had after the game, just saying, that team looked like they wanted it more than our team did.
Simmer, this whole season has been aimed at nothing matters but playoffs, right? They changed coaches and the fans don't want to hear it. And show me in playoffs has kind of been the mentality. And they're playing a much more playoff style of game. Yes, last night was disheartening, but do you believe that the way they're playing with the personnel they have is a recipe for postseason success?
Oh, there's a loaded question.
Isn't it? It depends
I'm
who
not
they
sure,
play, right?
I'm not sure they have the pieces that fit necessarily the puzzle that Craig would ultimately like. I was listening to you guys in the hotel and looking back at 2019, their final game against Boston, and you look at that lineup and say, that's not a team built of superstars. That's a team that was built out of a lot of role players, a lot of glue guys on the back end, some really glue guys in O'Reilly and Shen up front. And I think that was perfect for the way that Craig wants a team to play. And so you're looking at that same kind of scenario of how I heard you guys talking about, not making those good little short passes and getting out of your zone, not having defensemen who are able to maybe even make that long stretch pass right now. It's more of a, stop the cycle, chip it out, or stop the cycle, get it up on the board. So I do think it's been an adjustment for this group. I think at times they've passed and at times they've grown. But I also do think that, depending on the matchup, as Justin was saying, you can get a team like Florida that just has that muscle memory of how to play. And they are built very differently. Even, Matthew Tkachuk doesn't play a wide open game. Bennett doesn't play even Barkov is not, an end-to-end guy. Their game is very different structurally than even Tampa, because as Nick was saying, Kucherov has a mind of his own, points all over. Sometimes a matchup just seems to work a little bit better. I think Toronto plays a system that can play against Tampa at times a little bit more easier. But when a team like Florida puts up an effort like they did and are just taking away ice and don't give you any time, I do think that's going to be a challenge for the Leafs. And I think that's what Berube has been trying to, preach to these guys, is the consistency of playing, under pressure, playing defense, being above the puck, getting it out quickly, getting it in quickly, getting on the forecheck and being aggressive, is trying to create that muscle memory so that when it does get tight like the playoffs do, you're hopefully better handled and suited to handle it.
You're listening to Craig Simpson, former National Hockey Leaguer, Stanley Cup champion, and current Sportsnet color analyst, getting ready to call the game tonight between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Toronto Maple Leafs on Sportsnet. Simmer, we've kind of seen an evolution somewhat on the blue line where we're seeing some pretty spectacular talents emerge, and Hudson's one of them now in Montreal, but Hughes and Makar the last few years.
Yeah.
And last night, and I'm not suggesting that, Forsling is in that category, but the man was a complete horse last night for Florida, and still probably doesn't get the recognition of how good he is right now. And Mikkola was this big stud last night too, but how imperative is it that you have guys that can skate, get up and down the lineup here? And, we've been waiting for Morgan to be that guy, and I'm not sure he is or can be anymore like he has in the past. But is that one missing element right now for the Leafs?
I don't think there's any question. And it's not, an element of it is there's just such a lack of offense, a lack of push. If I'm a forward, so much of your offense can be created by those long stretch passes or good outlets, or D jumping up and causing havoc and getting a misread by a forward coming back, and now I'm wide open. That's what that element brings. And it was really noticeable even on Saturday. Zach Werenski's 20 goals were more than the entire Leaf defense. And at some point, that's going to hurt you. I think I've said in all these close games in a while, they need to get something out of the back end that might be a game changer and might turn the game around, because it's so easy if you're just defending against three guys. If you're defending against four or a fifth, like that Florida defense can, when you get Ekblad and Forsling jumping in and jumping up on the play, it becomes such a more difficult defensive read for us dumb forwards, as all the D-men would say. And I do think that's really important. Even looking back to Craig's team in St. Louis, you know, a guy like Jay Bouwmeester was zero offense by that time. But, man, he munched up 26, 27 minutes. And it was almost like you didn't notice he was there, but he's a guy who could take 5 strides, separate himself from the forecheck, make a play, and you're out of trouble.
And
I go, that's what's missing. And I think that's a big element.
Yeah. It's when you're out there, you control the pace of play because you have the puck. Yeah. And that's missing.
Yeah, they certainly need everyone on board. Like, you know, having one of their 5D that are good hurt is immediately noticeable for me. You know, when you look up front, Simmer, last night their bottom 2 lines were Lawton, Domi, Yarncroc, Lorenz, Holmberg, Robertson. How does that stack up compared to what you expect to see in playoffs? And do you have someone in there that maybe comes out when Kampf is back?
Well, you know, the debate will always be Robertson's the guy who's the perfect in and out. I heard you talking, I think, yesterday, and I mentioned it on the broadcast on Saturday, just his ability to score when he gets back in the lineup. So you kind of, as a coach, you have that in the back of your mind going, you know, maybe I can't play him now, but if we're not scoring, I'll bring him in and, you know, maybe he can be the catalyst. I think it's been an issue, obviously, the bottom 6 the entire year. It's been trying to find some pieces that work together. At times you look, I think I've told you this many times, one of the most incredible things being a part of a coaching staff is how much you debate and talk about the makeup of your lines. And it changes with injury, of course, but sometimes it's literally just you have the stickies up on the board and the white, and you make this line, you say, oh, I love that. That's going to work great. Then you look at your other 2 and go, no, but that destroys that, and that's not going to work there. And I think that exercise has probably gone on, you know, numerous times in the Leaf room as well. I think you just have to realize you're not going to have the perfect look that you want. So what you have to do, I think David Kampf probably has to be a playoff player for you. I think he's played well enough in the past. He's reliable. He's a face-off guy. He's a penalty-killing guy. So who comes out, you know, you might be Robertson, but you might find at times you got to make a little tougher decision because as much as they've had their moments in Lawton and Domi and Yarncroc, I've heard Justin, I think, say it 5, if not 10 times. I'm not sure that's a line you can play in the playoffs. Yeah. And so you might find that it's not what you thought it was going to be, and you're going to have to adjust. And you might find, you know, you might have to tinker with the top few lines, and that's where a guy like maybe Robertson, you know, can play a little bit higher up for a little bit. Because let's face it, you're going to be adjusting, I think, when you don't have a bona fide, you know, 12 guys at forward, you say, these lines all look good, I'm just going to roll them. Craig Berube, I don't think, has that. So I think it's pretty safe to say there's going to have to be some tinkering going on as the series goes along.
Mm-hmm. Simmer, the last 40 or 50 years, whether we've watched or played or covered hockey games this time of year, we've seen some goaltenders carry their team a long, long way. And I'm just wondering now if the Leafs continue to get this primo goaltending out of Stolars or if Woll comes in relief, can the Leafs play a little rope-a-dope here and still find success?
Well, I think so. I think what you have now is some predictability. And I think, you know, as a player, there's nothing more deflating when you come back as a team, even though, you know, you're always going to have a night where an unlucky goal or even like last night, a bad turnover behind the net and they score, okay. But when you start to turn the game and you start to get it back, what kills playoff teams that can't get over the hurdle is your team as a whole starts to grind, starts to get it back. You're down by 2. Now all of a sudden you're down by 1. Now you've tied it up. And there's nothing more deflating and more that pulls the team apart than another bad goal. You know, I've said this so many times, Nick, playing with Grant Fuhrer was the best example of that. Fuhrer would let in one or two bad ones, but it's all about when it is. And there was not a better goaltender that I played with that when you sensed the team was taking over, and he was fortunate he had a team that could take over games in 5 minutes, but you knew as a teammate that he's got your back. So if it's a 3-3 game right now, literally you're saying on the bench, all we got to do is get 4. We get 4, we're going to win this game. And in the past, even with the Leafs, when they've had some good goaltending, it's the unkindly bad goal that was a mistake by the goalie. And there are times when you just have to admit it. You know, your goalie got beat on a shot that he shouldn't have got beat at. It happens all the time, but it's when it happens that matters the most. I from all the years I've done Toronto during this time, there's no question that it's a different feel, and it's a different feeling the way the players feel about the goaltenders. I really do feel that they can feel that if the game starts to turn, these guys got your back. They've got the ability to maybe steal a game, but maybe more importantly, can they keep it, to 2 or 3? Can you get 3 or 4 to win a game? And if you can do that offensively, I think the confidence builds that your goaltender's got your back.
Simmer, last one for me, and we appreciate your time today. The on your way to winning a couple Stanley Cups, I'm wondering how much you guys worried about what opponent you drew, or if you just worried about yourselves, because it's related to tonight and how important you think tonight is for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, well, I'll flip that on you, Justin. That I've been watching both Paul Maurice and his comments in the last week, and John Cooper, and I can guarantee you that internally in talking, the only thing those coaches are worried about is the health of their team. Yeah. They really, I think, couldn't care less where they end up finishing or who they end up getting, because they believe in their guys. They've got 70 to 80% of their team that has been through those battles against Boston to try to win, or been through those key moments that you can fall back on. I really think, just focused on, getting ourselves healthy, and we'll deal with whoever we have to play with. That being said, they don't have the negativity that's built into what the Leafs players are dealing with, and it's a real thing. And so I do think it's a different feel for the Maple Leafs, and even for Craig Berube to say, no, let's make sure we focus on trying to build confidence in each other, build confidence in the group that we can raise our game to another level. We failed last night. We got to come back and show we can do it tonight. So if I'm them, it's a different take for Craig than it would be for the other two coaches. Get that first overall. I know it's not that you want to get Ottawa or anything. It's you want to prove that you have the ability to come up when you need it the most. You have to find and start building some muscle memory and some mental memory in your body about what it takes to play at the next level. There's such a difference between playing a playoff game and playing a regular season game. The opponents that we're talking about in Tampa and Florida have all pushed through that proverbial brick wall and done it and won it, and don't have a whole lot of negatives in their mindset. The one time for Toronto, you score the overtime winner, Tavares, against Tampa, and then you get lit up by Florida. It creates another negative. They have so many more negatives in their collective minds that I do think for Craig, he's saying, we got to find a way to build something that makes us feel like we're at that level now, and then we got to bring it into the playoffs.
A win tonight will go a long way to get this thing back on the rails. Hey, Simmer, great stuff as always, man. Have a great call tonight. We look forward to hearing you and CC. And we'll catch up to you soon.
Okay, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Simmer.
That is Stanley Cup champion, Sportsnet analyst Craig Simpson.
He knows as much or more than anybody who talks about the Leafs. He watches them close.
This is the new biggest game of the year. This is the second consecutive huge one tonight. We're looking forward to it.
Game.
All right. Don't go away. We got an hour. We go national. Chris Pronger. Did I ever tell you he cross-checked me in a Grand Fuhrer?
Oh, did that happen?
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, that was on him.
Glenn Healy. Did I ever tell you that Glenn lost the Stanley Cup in New York City during the
Basically
parade?
lost it.
We'll share that and much more when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Don't go away. Welcome back into the Real Kyper and Bourne show. We go national, live on Sportsnet, as well as Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet 365. Man, it's been a tough week in the National Hockey League as we lost another one in our world. Ray Shero passed away at the age of 62. Shero, of course, one of the top executives, the last few years, the architect behind the Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup.
The 09 one.
Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah, really tough week, man. Oh,
it is. Another guy who everyone just seemed to love. So much positivity. Sad stuff,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Got a chance to have a few cold ones down when I covered the GM meetings in Florida, and he's just a fun guy to hang out with and talk hockey.
Yeah.
Of course, they're a great family. Dad, Philadelphia Flyer, great head coach.
Yeah.
Freddie the Fog.
Thoughts and prayers, for the family there. It's, what a successful career he's had. You mentioned the family too. So, tough week. Yep.
And in a few minutes, we'll welcome in Chris Pronger, Hall of Fame defenseman. Now, the last time we had Prongs was just before the tournament started, or just before the gold medal game, or the championship game between Canada and U.S. But he was really good. And one thing that I remember is like, what kind of hockey, we're going to see out of this game. And yeah, he didn't miss a beat on.
He was all in
the intensity of it.
Yeah, he thought it was going to be. I don't want to say he thought it was going to be a fight fest, but he thought, you put on the jerseys for your country, and it's been this long. He expected what we got essentially, and he's got a lot of experience at it. This guy's I also need to ask him about his Twitter feed these days. He's very active.
Electric.
Yeah.
Electric. Basking in the glow of the St. Louis Blues and among many other things. But yeah.
He's doing a lot of motivational talking, right?
Yeah, he's busy.
He's busy.
He was even just texting me saying, good to go. I'm all good. So we should be getting him shortly.
Awesome.
But yeah, Chris Pronger. I mean, he's just on top of it all. Even yesterday, congratulating the Ottawa Senators for being back in the playoffs, first time in 8 years. So plenty of good stuff happening.
And somewhere in the building, I'm told Glenn Healy is around and
just listen for the bagpipes.
Promised to stop by as well. So we're looking forward to that.
Good
as
hour.
well.
Good hour, I guess. Great news in Canadian hockey.
Yeah.
Montreal and Ottawa buzzing.
We got to, before we get to Prongs, and maybe we'll talk to him as well about the Vancouver Canucks last night, dead and buried after an empty net goal.
Yeah.
What should have solidified a 5-2 win.
Mm-hmm.
And they score 3 times in under a minute, which has apparently never been done before.
Is that right?
53 seconds. Never happened.
Against the Dallas Stars, no
Never
less.
happened. First time ever.
Incredible.
Huge for the Winnipeg Jets. Huge.
Wow. All right, as promised, let's bring him in, Hall of Famer, Chris Pronger. Prongs, how are you, man? Where are you these days?
I'm in beautiful Philadelphia. Sunny day here. The sun came up in sunny Philadelphia.
Hey, how did the interview go? I hear they're looking for a coach.
Allegedly, yes. Allegedly.
No.
Wouldn't that be something?
Too busy being an entrepreneur and a motivational speaker than to get back with a hockey club?
Too much going on, absolutely.
Prongs, what do you have your fingers in these days? It feels like you're involved in several things.
Yeah, I'm doing actually here for a couple of speaking engagements. I had one this morning at River Rock Academy, which is for kids that need a little special attention, a little extra attention. Mm-hmm. And then tomorrow I'm doing Snyder Hockey puts on what is called the Fit to Lead Conference, and I'll be a featured speaker there with newly retired Brandon Graham of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Very cool.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
The last time, Prongs, we had you on, I think, was just prior to the Canada-USA game, if I'm not mistaken, in Four Nations. And you didn't waver at all in terms of what we thought we were going to see coming right out of the gate. But We haven't talked to you since the famous 9 seconds and 3 fights, and just maybe what that kind of did for hockey moving forward and the domino effect and how it resonated south of the border. Love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic. I think it opened up hockey to a whole new group of people that maybe hadn't given it the time of day. And I think with, some of the issues that basketball and baseball are having with respect to their efforts, I think hockey can build on what we believe is the greatest game and just the culture and, as you know, the willingness to sacrifice one's body to have the opportunity to win a championship. In that case, you're talking about the Four Nations, and soon to be, we've got the Stanley Cup on the line. So it's exciting, and it takes the full complement within the organization. You got the Black Aces, you've got 23, 25 man roster, you've got all walks of life coming in to help out at a moment's notice when someone goes down with injury, and guys are willing to step in and follow suit. It makes it really special when you're able to win.
I know, factor in the political scope of where we were between both countries at the time, maybe still today, but the talk of the 9 seconds and the 3 fights, did that bring fighting back in vogue?
I think a little bit. I did not hear one person, and even though those Greenpeacers that are against fighting, I did not hear one person say that it sucked or it was brutal or, oh my God, how dare we promote that? Nobody was promoting it. People were promoting the rivalry and the excitement and energy in the building, and that translated back onto the TV with fans watching and just the build-up and excitement to then round 2, which was the championship game. I think it's pretty hard to kind of lay your head on your pillow and worry about willing combatants and those that are fighting for their countries in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an absolute thrill ride. So Canada comes out on top. Great success there. Now we're moving towards playoffs where, we're going to get Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton, 5 Canadian teams in the playoffs. The problem is we thought we were going to get more, but your Blues got red hot. I think they're 18-3-2 since the Four Nations face-off. Did you see anything like that in that roster prior to this run?
Not this type of run. I think you saw the makings of players coming into their own. Obviously, the 2 offer sheet guys, Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. Dylan Holloway, kind of out of the gate, having a really, really strong year and just getting better and better with each game. But Philip Broberg, he doesn't have a large body of work. I think he had less than 100 games in the NHL prior to coming into St. Louis. So, still very green, still a lot of maturation and development needed. But with the injury to Parayko, he's kind of pushed into a much bigger role and has really played really well for them. And as has Cam Fowler since his addition, which was, in early December. They've got 3 guys with over 1,000 games and Parayko with about 700. So they've got a very experienced D-core. With the likes of Jordan Binnington coming off a huge win at the Four Nations, former Stanley Cup winner. They've got a lot of experience back there. And it was just some of their younger guys now coming into their own. Woll has been a breath of fresh air. You've got the 2 guys up front in Kyrou and Thomas. You've got Braden Shen and all the trade rumors that were surrounding him. As I mentioned, you got Holloway. You've got Jake Neighbors has been really good since the Four Nations. Just everybody's kind of come into their own. Everybody's they're getting offensive production up and down the lineup, all 4 lines. Vucinovic has now caught fire again, coming off injury and being productive. It's been really impressive to see the next man up mentality as far as injuries, and then also from an offensive standpoint, they're getting goals and production from the back end. They're getting, timely goal scoring from not only their top guys, but as I mentioned, the bottom six guys. And, that's a recipe for success.
You're listening to Chris Pronger, Hall of Fame defenseman. If you get a chance, follow him on Instagram too, because he's got some amazing looks at the life of or the mindset of an athlete and how it could transition to every day in life, which brings me to what's between the ears of some athletes. And I'll stick with St. Louis for now and Jordan Binnington. And I know he won the Stanley Cup, but he still goes into Four Nations, Chris, and there are some doubters. And what he was able to do in that gold medal game and what that could do for him moving forward. And maybe could you relate to that at all with your success internationally before obviously, solidifying your Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think with him, I think the past couple of years, I almost want to say he's been a little distracted, in some of the antics that have gone on with trying to start fights and bickering with players, and just, you bump him and he wants to bump you back, and he wants to hit guys and try to fight guys and all the rest of that. And now he's gotten back to that stoic, he plays the puck extremely well, which allows their D to not have to go back and get their face plastered against the glass. They can now peel off into the corners and near the hash marks. And he's the first pass transitioning the puck north and south. And that's where they've really made a huge change in how they transition the puck north to south. They were playing a very east-west game. And I think at times for Jordan Binnington, he was getting frustrated with the amount of shots he was getting, the amount of high-quality scoring chances they were giving up. And they just weren't playing very well. And I don't think they were having any fun. And now you just see Monty's come in. It's a breath of fresh air. Players coach, but he holds them accountable. He's got them firing on all cylinders, much like Chief did 6 years ago when he came in. So it's really fun to see. And I think you see him going through what he went through at the Four Nations with all the question marks and everybody wondering if he was going to be able to resurrect himself and be the Jordan Binnington of old. And certainly since quieting the critics, he has been on a nice little run. And they also have a great backup goaltender in Joel Hofer, who plays the puck just as well as he does. So they don't skip a beat back there when they give him a little time off.
Prongs, I wanted to get your take on a sort of a newer archetype of D-man, and I could be wrong in saying that. Maybe you think there's some from your day that fit the mold, but I'm watching Lane Hudson with Montreal and the way that he moves laterally across the blue line, and Quinn Hughes moves laterally. Now
you didn't have to move like that. You just whack somebody over the head with your stick, right?
Create my own space, right?
But does this not feel like we're going to see more of these Waterbug guys back there playing defense than when you played?
I don't know if we're going to see more. I think, watching Lane Hudson, watching Quinn Hughes, the edge work, the speed, how quickly they can get past that first defender, how they can elude and how evasive they are, stutter step or change in direction and 2 or 3 strides in their pass that guy and creating that separation that they need to get their shot off. We can talk about this all we want, but until we get into the playoffs and see how they do under duress, how they do in a more physical environment, that will, I think, quiet the rest of the critics once they're able to get through a lot of that. And, Quinn Hughes obviously answered the bell last year, was injured to a certain extent and still came through to play extremely well for the Vancouver Canucks. So it'll be interesting to see what Lane Hudson is going to be able to do in Montreal.
Prongs, last night we watched the Toronto Maple Leafs go into Florida. A lot was made out of this game in terms of who's going to win the Atlantic Division, and the Leafs did not fare well at all. And it was, to me, it was almost like they looked like a team, like a deer in with the headlights coming on them, right? Deer in the headlights. And, getting back to the mindset of an athlete, is it possible that, even 10-year athletes that have been around could still find their a way to kind of psych themselves out of certain games? Because it didn't look like the team that has led the Atlantic Division in the Leafs at all.
Yeah, I think there can be some scar tissue. And I think at times, I think maybe we look a little bit too much in on the regular season, and we look at the matchups, and I know in Edmonton everybody was worried when we were going to play Detroit. They had 120 whatever points, and had a President's Cup run, and we went 2-2 against them in the regular season, so we weren't worried, but everybody else was. And fast forward a couple series, and we played Anaheim in the conference finals. I think we played them 8 times, and we went 6-2. And so, for whatever reason, there's certain matchups, certain things, the stylistically, the goaltender, whatever it is with Florida, they seem to really struggle. They got over that hurdle with Tampa Bay a few years ago, and so it'll be interesting to see. Sometimes it takes a otherworldly turn from one of their superstars to kind of lead them to the promised land, get past that the team that's biting them, and it'll be interesting to see. I didn't like Matthews' game. He just kind of looked a little off. Nylander was okay. Tavares was okay. Those guys, if they're going to beat these teams that are elite or that have given them problems in the past, those are the guys that have to elevate, rise to the occasion, and be the superstars that they are in order for them to get past these teams. It's not going to be the bottom 6. It's not going to be the back end. The goalie needs to be good.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to rely on your goalie to be great every game, then you have a problem with your roster construction. If your goalie has to make the saves that they should make.
Yeah.
And when, as you know, timing, and when they make them. Your goalie can give up a bad goal, but when you need them to make a save and it's a save they should be making, they have to make those. Otherwise, it's a series crusher, it's a game crusher, and it's hard to rebound from those types of situations.
I want to get your thoughts then on what, this is a very motivational speaky type topic, but what themes do good leaders have? Because I look around the NHL and the types of people who are captains in the NHL are very different. Barkov and Matthews get votes for the Lady Byng Trophy every year. Nathan McKinnon threw his helmet at someone's head or someone else's helmet at their head. There's a different level. These guys are still leaders. So, can you be a successful leader without fitting into some certain archetype of what a leader is, what we think of a leader?
Absolutely. You have to be yourself. I mean, Scott Niedermayer wasn't exactly rah-rah, jump up and down, scream and yell. Very stoic,
right.
Very calm, much like you're talking about Matthews and Barkov. Nobody questioned his leadership. So you have to, everybody in the locker, you have to be yourself. You have to have a good group of leaders around you. There were moments in Anaheim where I would stand up, where Tamu would stand up, where Todd Marchand would stand up. And then the moments where Scotty felt like he needed to, it was his time. Then and when you have people like that don't speak often, but when they do, it means something, and everybody listens and everybody follows along. And those are the types of guys, those are the leaders that are able to have a pulse on the room and know when they need to stand up and say something.
It is easier.
They always have to be that rah-rah guy.
Mm-hmm.
Prongs, though, it is easier to stand up when you're playing well than when you're not, though. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. As a leader, absolutely. You're a lot of times you're holding your teammates accountable, but you're holding yourself accountable. And you have to be playing to the best of your abilities. You have to be leaving it all out there every single shift. If you're going to pull along everybody else and you're going to wanting other guys to elevate their play, you've got to be doing your role. You've got to be doing your job as well. It's hard to come in the locker room and hold guys accountable to a standard when your standard is below par.
Prongs, we're watching the Montreal Canadiens, the second half of the season, get themselves in the playoffs. It's been a magical season for them so far. We hear news that Ivan Demidov, which arguably could be the best prospect out there in the world. We had Jason Bukala, one of our key analysts, talking and raving about him. We assume that he's going to be in the lineup. We assume that they want to put him in a position to succeed. But what may be some of the things that you got to be wary about if you're the Montreal Canadiens putting a 19-year-old kid in a situation like this?
Well, you definitely want to get a few regular season games under his belt to get him acclimated. It's just a different style of play. Playing in Russia to here. Big ice surface, a little smaller, more intimate over here. Throwing them right into the fire. Teams fighting for playoff spot. Everything on the line. Not a lot of time to endear himself, albeit everybody's excited for him and will be watching with bated breath for some highlight reel of sorts to come out of it. But, a player of that caliber, I'm not too worried about. They've got a lot of talent up front. They've got a lot of players that they can put him with to bring out the best in him. And, Marty St. Louis, I'm sure, is going to have a game plan put in place to maximize his talents and to not, put him in a position to fail. Put all your eggs in one basket and be like, he's going to be the savior and lead us to the promised land, I think is would be a little too much to ask at this stage of the young man's career. But we've seen funnier things happen, though. However, it is Montreal, and they are going to build them up.
Yeah, that's unavoidable. So as we move towards playoffs, then, trying to make sense of what teams are, likely cup contenders. I'm looking, the Oilers are crippled with injury, right? They're without McDavid and Draisaitl and go down the list. You look at Florida, they've been without guys all the way along. Do you worry about the teams that have been injured leading up to the playoffs if they get healthy in time for game one?
Not necessarily. For some of them, especially the Edmontons of the world with their star players out, getting rest, they've had a long last couple of years, Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals, Four Nations, on for McDavid. Draisaitl a little less, but this rest probably couldn't come at a better time. But it also gives the other players an opportunity to get valuable power play time, showcase what they can do, and get an opportunity. And once those other guys come back, they're no longer I'm going to watch this. I'm going to participate. I'm going to be involved. I know where to go. I know what to do. I want to provide some offensive production and be a difference maker for our team and get to that next level and win a Stanley Cup. A heartbreaker last year. Let's see if we can rebound from it.
One more for me, Prongs, because we're going to have you on at some point in the playoffs. We know that. But what do you like to see in the first round? Are we going to see an upset anywhere? And if it is, who's most likely to upset one of the top seeds?
I like Ottawa's chances. I just think they've just been chomping at the bit for this opportunity.
That would be Washington, right?
No, currently.
Or Toronto?
Toronto.
Toronto. Okay. All right.
Toronto currently, which wouldn't bode well for the Maple Leafs, but I just think
Don't do that to
resurrecting
Sammy.
the Battle of Ontario. I think would be great for the game of hockey. It would suck for the two fan bases that one of them is going to go home in the first round. One of the Canadian teams, but I think just resurrecting that. Anytime we can get these rivalries and really just kind of get that hatred and electricity and energy back in the game, I love it. I would say whoever St. Louis plays, whether it be Vegas or Winnipeg, that would be tough. Even Montreal. We'll see how this Demidov kid plays. I think defensively they've been a little bit better of late. I worry about overplaying Montembeault. It seems like they've been able to play the other kid a little bit and kind of give him a break. I felt like when I saw him a few weeks ago in St. Louis, he looked a little tired, was a little deep in his net. And sometimes the goalie just, he's fairly new to being a starter. It can grind on you a little bit. So, I think there's opportunities for some knockouts, but then you look at, the 2-3 matchups are, you got Colorado and Dallas. That's going to be a heartbreaker. Both feel like they're cup or bust this year. And then let's just say it's Tampa, Florida. Both made a lot of moves, in season and then at the deadline, trying to solidify themselves. Florida going for a repeat, and Tampa trying to get back there again. It's there's a lot of intrigue and excitement with the matchups. I personally like the way it's set up. I know a lot of people don't, but I just love seeing good hockey and a lot of excitement. And some fans are happy, some fans are mad. It just any way you slice it, only one fan base is going to be happy at the end of the year, and that's the Stanley Cup winner.
Awesome stuff, Prongs. Often people come up to me and say, how can you be friends with Pronger? You almost broke your back on a cross check. And I'm like, no, he's a really good guy when he's not stepping on your head.
Accidentally on purpose.
Yeah, glad you guys worked through that.
You're the best, my friend. Thanks for
Just
joining
working
us.
out again.
All right, we'll see you and hear from you in the playoffs.
Thanks so much.
That is the one, the only Chris Pronger.
He knows his stuff.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
he did. Ran you right from behind. Cheap.
Tough.
Yeah.
Like, vicious tough.
It's, McKee has some random, bad takes. His take, though, that Pronger at his best helps your team win as much as any defenseman in NHL history is pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Peak Pronger, as good a D-man as you can have.
They
Definitely.
controlled the play for 30 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Half the game, when he
Long,
was on the
defended,
ice,
could
he
score.
would tell you where you're going to go if you had the puck. Like, that's how good he was.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going this way, you're going that way, and I'm going to meet you here, and then I'm going to take the puck off of you.
Yeah.
For me, the barometer always is when you get to best on best setting, in that setting competition, who really separates and is head and shoulders so much better still than everybody else around them.
Mm.
And I remember the 2010 Olympic Games in particular and thinking, boy, oh boy, when Chris Pronger was on the ice, my heart rate went down a few notches because I was more calm and comfortable seeing number 20 on the ice. And then this year, for example, Four Nations, the one guy that did it for me consistently, Cale Makar.
Yeah.
And that's the type of impact your best defenseman has.
It makes a world of difference. Do some game time?
Oh, game time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
do it.
It's game time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds. Find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus, Ontario only. Play responsibly. 5 games in the NHL tonight. I got my eye on a couple that I think are interesting. We mentioned Edmonton is really banged up still. No McDavid. No Draisaitl again tonight. St. Louis, for some reason, plus 125 on the road. Only plus 120. I think, honestly, the fact that they're dogs in general going on the road, they just had their 12-game winning streak snapped. I don't mind that at all. I understand it's in Edmonton. You're on the West Coast, but the Blues, they've just been so darn good, so darn hot.
Yeah, the Oilers, I think, are dressing 11 forwards tonight. They got Henrique and Perry on the top line.
Oof.
Noah Philpson. They got not the best look they have going out tonight.
The other thing I was looking at, I don't know if you guys saw this or caught this yet, but Minnesota's getting Kaprizov and
Yes, I
Eriksson
did see
Ek
that.
back today.
Bad news for Calgary, man.
Heavy favorites, of course, tonight. They're playing San Jose, but I wouldn't mind sprinkling a little bit on the spread, minus 1.5 at minus 115. And you want to sneak in some golf, Masters? Because we won't be on.
Day before the tourney.
The Masters, of course, round 1 teeing it up tomorrow down at Augusta. There's one guy in particular. Everybody's talking about Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy. All right, give me all that fine, good stuff. The one guy I'm circling, little Colin Morikawa action.
He's so good.
Plus 1,500 to win. Even if you want to be a little bit more conservative, top 5 plus 260, top 10 plus 125. To me, that's solid. He's been a top 10 the last 3 years in this tournament.
He's a diva.
Colin Morikawa.
I've got like half a dozen friends right now
Yeah.
on their way there right now.
Oh,
really?
And they text me.
You got the PJ
And
crowd?
I'm like, don't text me that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having an okay day.
Have either of you guys been, by chance?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
I got Oberg.
I got
Ludwig Oberg.
I got a text
I like
from
that one, too.
Brian Leach a few months ago. I'm in a hut.
A hut?
A hut.
Augusta has huts?
Yes, they have huts.
I bet they're nicer than
really?
my home.
Yes. I'm sleeping in a hut.
So he got to play the
And
course.
I got my tee off,
Wow.
and I'm like, USOP.
I know one guy who knows a guy sort of thing, and it's my life goal. It's the only thing I want to accomplish in my life is playing that golf course. That's all I want.
We have somebody at the station that has been once or twice. I know Ben Ennis
Jerry
has
D.
been. Ben Ennis has been.
Has been
He has been.
as a spectator.
Yeah,
Jerry played the
going.
course.
You have to
No,
to win.
playing. Ben's
Playing.
played it?
No, I don't.
No,
care, but I don't
no,
wanna go
absolutely
watch.
not. No, I would just be
Frank,
grateful
I'm
to
quitting
go.
life. If I hear Ben Ennis has played
Played
the
and got
Masters,
No.
I'm done. I'm leaving right now.
Kip couldn't
Thank
emotionally
God.
handle it.
Oh my God! Thank God Ben has not played the Masters. He's just bought a ticket.
Yeah.
Thank
Win the
God.
lottery. That's what happens. And then you go. All right, that was Game Time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds. Find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Play responsibly.
Beautiful. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hunt for Glenn Healy.
The hunt for heels.
Listen for bagpipes. Hopefully, they're on their way in studio when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. Kyper, JB, and Disco Dan.
You know what I just saw before we came on? That Teoscar Hernandez has 5 homers, which is 1 less than the Blue Jays this year. That hurts. I missed
I thought
Teoscar.
Sammy was the only one that could do baseball.
Oh, Borny.
Buddy,
You soured me, too.
it's great for them. Anyway.
Any luck with Glenn
75
Healy?
First
No.
place in the AL East. I don't mean to disparage
Yeah,
the
no,
Jays.
we're
humming.
okay. We're
No,
okay.
They're winning. They're doing okay.
We're doing okay.
Yeah.
Nothing yet, eh?
Nothing yet from Heels.
All
Nope.
right.
We're gonna
We'll see if
we'll
we can.
see.
We'll see if we can sneak them in. All right, the Ottawa Senators
Yes.
clinch, and no question that the last few years of drafting and signing and commitment to some of these kids with the long contracts finally paid off.
You know, it's the first year of a new owner there in Ottawa, and the season started with some excitement that things could be different. And I just think it's really cool that those positive vibes have kind of happened at the same time that Kachuk and Stützle and these guys hit their prime. Sanderson came into his own. Shabbat. They got a goalie, and all of a sudden here they are. They are locked in, and they got games to spare. We're looking at a Battle of Ontario. I just think it's super exciting. They're a lot of fun to watch. And a bright future too. This doesn't. I don't look at them and see a flash in the pan here.
Are you guaranteeing Canadians a Battle of Ontario?
Ottawa, Toronto.
Yeah, you're guaranteeing it.
No. That would mean the Leafs. That would mean guaranteeing the Leafs are going to beat Tampa Bay
Yes,
tonight. And
that's right.
who would do that?
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
You
Otherwise-
mentioned it.
Hey, otherwise Tampa Bay, Ottawa. In which case, a night Ottawa. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Toronto, you got a chance.
We're starting to see already, still a handful of games, teams sitting players out. Jack Eichel.
Is he currently hurt? Like
No, just
just taking a knee.
yeah, they're calling it day to day, I think. But
That's awesome.
we are seeing guys rest, and the Senators are now in a position where
Mhm.
I'll be shocked if Brady Tkachuk plays another game before the
Oh, really?
regular
Yeah,
season.
I think Steos sort of alluded to it. Game 1, I mean, he did it in the most politically correct fashion of saying, if can he play tomorrow? Maybe, I don't know.
Now, do-
but then game 1 for sure. He's like, absolutely, we'll have him ready.
Do we know his issue? Brady's?
No. I mean, you and I saw him
Yes.
together run into a player, Ryan
Yes.
Graves, I believe. I thought
Concussion?
head, you thought shoulder at the time, and then we weren't sure. So, well, that remains to be seen. Why don't we listen? Not about that. But Steve Steos, we do have a clip from him on the positive first step here for the Ottawa Senators and getting back to the playoffs.
It's a good first step for this group. I mean, I'm really excited for our players. From day one when they came into training camp, you could see that there was this motivation, and it's a good step for us. And they're a motivated group. Last night was a little bit awkward, to be quite honest. We played one of our poorest games of the season, and yet clinched a playoff spot. So and the reaction from the group was not quite satisfied, So that's, I think, the interesting thing with this group and how they're handling all these situations moving forward is that they're motivated.
Now, there is one very interesting game left on the schedule. And not tomorrow night, but the next night, Montreal and Ottawa play. Montreal is 3 points back of Ottawa. There is the possibility that Montreal could catch them. You win that game and Ottawa end up in the bottom wild card spot, which would throw you into the Metro.
Yeah, with Washington.
In which case, I don't think you hate that. Right? I don't think you're that worried about that, are you? Is Washington any different than Tampa or whoever you think you're going to play in the Atlantic? And then if you were to upset a team, New Jersey or Carolina has to look a lot better than Toronto or Florida.
I mean, I shouldn't say this because I just watched Florida just beat up the Leafs, but I've never been less worried about matchups because I just find there's so much unpredictability.
Very true. How's the goalie play? How's the team's health?
How hot are you at the time?
Yeah.
And how good do you feel? Are you at your peak? We can beat anybody mode, because when you are in this league, you can.
Hey, let me ask you, what do you think of the theory that some people suggest where you pick your opponent? So let's say, 8 teams make playoffs in the East. The first seed picks a team, then the second team, third team, fourth team. So 4 teams pick an opponent. I guess 3 teams pick an opponent, the 4 teams left with one. How would you feel about that?
Very nervous.
Yeah.
And I think that they would never vote for that from the mere perspective of, I don't want to be wrong.
Well, but that's the fun of it.
It's one thing.
It's a competition.
It's one thing to lose a series. It's another one to lose it because you picked the wrong opponent.
Isn't that awesome, though? What are we doing here? Sports or reality TV?
It's
a fun idea.
Does not help job security.
No, it doesn't. But on the other hand, it does help if, let's say, you're the 1 seed and all of a sudden some team like St. Louis in 2019 or this year even, and they climb all the way up and they sneak into the 8 seed and you go, God, we got to play the hottest team in the league. Or you could look at, let's say it's Florida, and Florida's still so hurt where they don't have any of their bodies, and they say, hey, we've earned the right to play the softer opponent.
The concept's been we've talked about this over the years, and I just don't ever see them going.
I think the PWHL does it.
They do.
Yeah.
They do, yes. It's obviously smaller scale because it really ends up being one team kind of
Gets a
picking.
pick, yeah.
Right? Okay, but if we did that exercise with what the playoff format and how it looks now.
16 teams.
Would you? Yeah, you do all 16.
If you imagine,
Oh, yeah.
Imagine
oh, no, all in.
1 through 8. Pick.
All in.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
If you're in the East right now, though,
You could
and you
sell
did
that
this
show.
Oh my God. Yeah, and that's all you need is the networks and say to the owners, hey, we got another moneymaker here for you.
If you did this exercise right now and you looked at the teams and you're Washington because they're the number 1 right now, who are you picking?
And you're looking at teams just in the East?
Right now, if we applied this idea to the current playoff structure, what we're seeing right now in this landscape, who's Washington picking to play in round 1?
It'd still bring me the Habs.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They still get the team they probably should get.
You gotta almost protect yourself
And say, pick who's in that spot.
I'm going to take the one that I would have got anyways.
Yeah. Unless the
Right?
team that's like one ahead of them has like 5 injuries or something. You're like, all right, well, they're banged up.
Or, Montreal owns the Florida Panthers this year.
That's a great point, too. Yeah. Like,
Right?
do you read into your regular season games and say, hey, they're way below us in standings, but they've beat us 4 times? Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out. Back to Ottawa. Let's listen to the players.
Okay.
We have a couple of clips. Stützle has his thoughts on them making the playoffs.
Yeah, obviously after a game like that, it doesn't feel as good, but we've been through some here and some tough years. So, I'm just really proud of the guys, how we all hanging in here. And, I couldn't be proud of all the guys. I don't think there's a team who deserves it more than us. I think we really worked really hard this year, and we just got to keep fighting our game.
He is a very talented guy.
Yeah, he's electric. He's the most shocking point total guy for me every year. Where I'm like, that's all. Like, I think he's
What's he at, 70?
no, I think 80 or he's a point.
81?
Something like that. Yeah, but it's always like,
Do
doesn't
you think he should be 100?
Yeah,
Mm.
I feel like
But
he's.
they're
he doesn't
not a
score.
great scoring team
They're
right
not.
now.
Let's see if I can find her.
I think you had even written it, Bourne. I think they're like
72
20th.
points in 78 games.
Like as a team.
72?
70.
Yeah, and I think even you had written out as a team they're 20th in scoring right
Yeah.
now in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
Kind of on track then at that point. 72 seems kind of low.
He's just so talented to me. I've always
It's weird.
expected him to be a bigger number guy, and maybe it still waits for him.
I find this interesting. I see an interesting parallel right now because the two teams we're talking about that are really knocking on that door. Ottawa gets in finally. Montreal's going to get in. But then you look at the trajectory and the developmental cycle that they've gone through. I'm kind of surprised we got both in the same year, right? Like we've been going through this now for a few years where conversation about Ottawa's got to do something eventually. Montreal's got to do something eventually. And both of them have had such similar seasons in terms of all of a sudden they get hot. Their best players that you've been thinking are their best players actually start delivering in a big way. Suzuki, Caulfield, here comes Lane Hudson. And then, of course, Ottawa. It's your Kachucks. It's your Shane Pintos. It's all these younger guys that you've been waiting on now delivering. I'm just fascinated that we're getting this with those two teams right now in the same season.
And no year have we seen more teams disappoint, which helps. Like the Rangers won the President's Trophy last year. They're going to miss playoffs.
Yeah.
Detroit was supposed to make, the Iser plan has them in by now. Islanders made playoffs last year. Boston absolutely blew it up. Pittsburgh tried. You know, like how Buffalo was supposed to be a team this year. Just a ton of things went wrong for it to go right for a couple of teams.
Landeskog. Getting a little closer to, I guess, giving it a try as he's Colorado announced that he'll be assigned for a conditioning stint in the American Hockey League with their Colorado Eagles. And, you know, we've all season long, we've had this segment, Doctor with Dr. Jason Smith, and we talked about how unique his injury is, replacement of something I can't even remember. And
sorry, the knee cartilage for Landeskog.
okay.
Yeah.
And really, I think the way the doctor described it was a Hail Mary chance here. And we're all pulling for him, and we'd all love to see him because he hasn't played a game since 2022, and he's at his prime, and he thankfully experienced winning a Stanley Cup, but
The last thing he did.
this guy wants to play.
I mean, I just can't imagine being his wife with their kids and have watched this rehab struggle and surgeries and years and commitment. He made a documentary about it, and he's going to go back and play, and just watching those games through your fingers like, oh, God. And like, please let it go well.
With this injury, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think it's kind of similar. Like they basically remade the cartilage in the knee, right? Where they they kind of transplant it. If I
I think
remember
they
correctly,
actually did transplant it from a
and
cadaver,
now if there's any evidence to say this might work, there's actually a really recent example in sports. Lonzo Ball of the Chicago Bulls, almost identical timeline. Sat for 2 full years, right? Went through the knee, entire multiple procedures, same sort of deal, and is able to play and has played in the NBA this year and hasn't missed time either.
Has he been effective?
Has been fairly effective. Not occupying the same role as he did previously, where he was like a starting point guard and playing 30 minutes, but it's possible. So I think if there's any reason to hold out hope, it's to say we've actually seen this done somewhat recently in pro sports. And I mean, I know there's the idea of saying you could go out on top. You won the cup. That's the last thing you did. That's cool. Awesome. But deep down, you're still saying, I didn't do it on my own terms.
He's also 32 years old.
He's 32.
You know, like it's tough to just watch at that point when the rest of your body feels as good as it probably does.
We wish him the best of luck. When we opened up the National Hour, we did talk about the Vancouver Canucks making history. In the first hour, I talked about the Leafs losing a game that could leave a mark, right, moving forward. Can we say the same thing about the Dallas Stars blowing a game like that on a team that is supposed to be one of the favorites to win the cup, a team that traded for Rantanen? Like, are we going to look back and say that they never recovered off of giving up 3 goals?
What's crazy about that, too, is how big the difference between finishing in the 2-3 matchup in the Central versus getting a wild card team is massive. And had they won that game, they'd have been 3 points behind the Winnipeg Jets, and they play tomorrow night. So they had the chance to really narrow that gap. And, Vancouver saved the Jets. The Jets are up 4 points, 4 games to go. President's Trophy leading team right now, right? Just talk.
Correct. Yep.
So they're 3 points up on the Capitals. Capitals have 1 extra game on them. But so, that was pretty bizarre.
Is there any part of you that thinks, you know what? Maybe at this point, that's actually not the worst thing. I say that in the sense of, hey, you get as a coaching staff, you get a very easy little convenient way of giving your team a kick in the rear end with a few games left before you go into the postseason. Hey, look what happens if you have 5 minutes of bad. Look what happens if you have 60 seconds of bad hockey, right?
Yes, except for you need those points in the standings. Yes,
Sure.
Coaching-wise, I get it. But, man, that hurt him in the standings in a big way.
It did, for sure.
Elliot, in his recent 32 Thoughts column, writes about expansion, and he says he doesn't know, but his prediction would be that we would get another team by 28-29.
Yeah, it's
and
coming.
It would be Houston. The Houston Hockey
Atlanta
Club.
seems to be still in the mix.
Yeah.
Is it just one? There's just going to
Just
be
one,
one?
but he thinks
He said 2.
But Houston going first, and by 28-29 being the ambitious timeline.
I don't know. How many teams we're at now?
2 billion. We were at 32 teams.
Yeah.
32.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Doesn't seem to matter to them.
Well, he does reference, too, the reason that he thinks they'll go one at a time as opposed to doing what you said, Kyper, which is maybe in Atlanta, Houston, sort of the next 2 in line, is they are concerned to some degree about the dilution of talent.
Right.
The fact that there isn't enough to go around, and now you have a franchise for the sake of having a franchise.
Yeah.
JB told me the other show that his signature shot was pull it in and go high glove.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I like that shot.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Oh, you like my odds of getting
Yeah,
back?
I do. I do, yeah.
Yeah, you like.
I do.
I like to shoot it by the ear. I would get killed by today's goalie with a shoulder shrug. So I like to aim at the helmet.
We
a
had
little
Brian Burke on. He's not a fan.
bit. No. I mean, you hear people say, why don't you just make sure all 32 are healthy? Do you have a team or two that needs the help? I don't know. He was worried about Utah, eventually being sustainable. They sure look like they're going
you
to
factor Gary Bettman's $7.7 billion U.S. check to the owners and $2 billion for expansion. That's $10 billion.
Good to see them have some financial success, the owners. Really, scrappy underdogs that they are. Really happy for them to break through. By the way, Phoenix still needs to get a team for Atlanta. They love
you
Phoenix.
think so? Yeah.
Oh, they love Phoenix.
Well,
I
they
know.
do. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I would.
Phoenix and Houston, the 2 hockey hotbeds.
But Houston feels weird to me. I don't know. Is it? I'm not too right.
No,
like
it's not.
Houston
okay,
Aeros.
so was it just 'cause
Aeros.
market share?
I know.
That's how I remember Gordy.
Giant City. As
Gordie
Houston
Howe.
Arrow, yeah.
I think I watched Gordie Howe at Maple Leaf Gardens.
They'd have to be the
that's
Arrows.
cool.
WHA, Toronto Toros. I couldn't get to a Leaf game, eh? I couldn't touch. My dad, I went to one game with him at 7, and it was like winning the lottery,
That's pretty cool.
getting Leaf tickets. But
All right.
no problem to go see the Toros down at Maple Leaf Gardens. All right. Just like that, 2 hours, and we've solved nothing.
Thanks to some guests, though.
Our thanks to Craig Simpson. Our thanks to Chris Pronger, and Glenn Healy owes us one.
It was great to think about. I like it.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
All right, enjoy your games tonight. We're back on Friday.